Hi, everybody. Aloha. Thank you so much for tuning in to another week of live Q&A here at Trauma Recovery University. I'm your host, Athena Moberg, and every week we show up here with a different topic. And I'm trying to see if I can get like in the middle of the screen here. Having some issues with lighting. One of my lights isn't working. So every week we come here with a different topic, and we serve the global community of adult survivors of childhood abuse, specifically childhood sexual abuse. And everyone sort of comes here and hangs out and gets their questions answered. And this week, the topic that we're going to be discussing and answering questions on is the topic of self-advocacy and self-advocacy skills. What is self-advocacy? And how does it differ from us advocating for other people? What are the similarities? What are the differences? I have a really great SlideShare presentation that I'm going to share with you guys that I found today as well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. I just want to welcome everybody that's here early. I know that there are about 20 of you on the YouTube app, and then at least that many of you over on Twitter as well. So thank you, first of all, to all of our volunteers. I have not had an opportunity yet. Normally, I type a little message to you guys in the chat box on YouTube. I did not have the opportunity to do that, but I just want to say hi and thank you to all of you who are over in the YouTube chat box supporting one another. This is a safe space for you to come every single Monday if you're an adult survivor of childhood trauma. Childhood abuse of any kind, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse during childhood, and now you are an adult. If you happen to still be a child and you're underage, some of the conversations can get a little bit graphic, and I would definitely seek out an adult to be with you here on these conversations. And I want to issue a trigger warning just to give you guys just a heads up. If you're new here on this channel, our conversations can be triggering to you if you've experienced any type of childhood abuse. So we do discuss, people ask their very candid questions, and then I will answer them in the best way I know how. And I have a wonderful SlideShare presentation on the topic of self-advocacy tonight that I will be sharing with you as well. And so this is your official trigger warning. If you are triggered, please do reach out to RAINN, our friends over at RAINN, the Rape Abuse Incest National Network. They can be reached at rainn.org. Or you can call them 1-800-656-HOPE. And over on the Twitter stream, using the hashtag #NoMoreShame, and even in our YouTube chat box, you'll be able to get information if you page up and just look under our hashtag or look in our chat box. We're finding ways to share information with you so that it's easily accessible to you if you happen to be triggered. So we ask kindly that if you are hanging out here in the YouTube chat box live, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, today, Monday, March 13th, 2017, or if you're on the Twitter stream live using the hashtag #NoMoreShame and you happen to be triggered, please step away from the hashtag and step away from the chat box and receive the excellent trauma-informed care and support that you deserve from helping professionals. So everything we do is peer-led and lived experience. So we're all coming from a lived experience perspective. I'm simply moderating and leading this group. You all are simply showing up and being amazing and supporting one another. So this is a healthy and positive environment. We discuss some really tough topics, and we love to be supportive to one another and to receive support. So this is a supportive place to be. If you're unable to be supportive because you're triggered, then we ask that you step away and receive the support that you need away from the hashtag and away from the YouTube chat box. And then when you're ready to support others or receive support in an encouraging environment, then come back. So that's it for my announcements. I'm just going to check and see if you guys have any questions yet. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and dive in and just share some of the questions that came in from you guys, and then share a great SlideShare presentation that I found today. So let me just see, my eyes are watering. Isn't it funny how my eyes water here every single week? And then last week we learned that one of the indicators of social anxiety disorder is watery eyes. So I'm always wondering, like, is it my lighting? Or is it that I'm socially anxious? Because we both know that there's both. I do have lighting issues, but I do struggle with anxiety, specifically social anxiety. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any questions yet. Nothing so far. Oh, good. You guys can hear me really good. I was wondering if the audio was okay. I had to reboot and check it all out. So looks like our audience is building. I'm going to go ahead and just do a screen share for you guys and just share some of the questions you had. So I'm just showcasing some questions that you, our community members, had for me and just amongst one another on this particular topic. So I posed the question, what questions would you like me to answer on the topic of recovering from childhood abuse, specifically childhood sexual abuse? And a whole bunch of people responded. So here's one of the different areas of answers that I got from you guys here. Hopefully you can see that okay. So one person said, maybe a video on self-advocacy. And then that posed the response, that triggered the response of someone else that said, hey, I saw last night's video and I may be missing something. So someone please correct me or direct me to sources. But when you say, quote unquote, meeting our needs that were not met in childhood by ourselves, not wishing them to be met by others, exactly how can that be done? And then someone below her or him responds and says, I think it means being there for yourself and not abandoning yourself when you are in a flashback. Learning to be your own parent instead of looking for someone else to do or say the right things. And then the original person responds and says, okay, well, thanks for the explanation. Having to give up the hope that someone else could be there for me. Hard. And I just want to validate, yes, 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 you guys, it is hard. It is hard to give up the hope that someone else is going to meet our needs. And I want to be very specific and general. Not only do I want to validate that that is hard, but I want to be really specific as we're discussing this particular topic. So the initial answer to the question was, hey, maybe a video on self-advocacy. And then the person that says, so I saw last night's video and I may be missing something, but someone please correct me or direct me to some sources. But when you say meeting our needs that were not met in childhood by ourselves, what this person is referring to, you guys, is I did a video a while back. I'm trying to remember, I think it was like healthy relationships or healthy communication. I believe it was healthy relationships. And it was a really great video. Hold on, I'm just going to take a drink of water really quick. 1 second, I'm losing my voice. Okay. Thanks so much, you guys. It's so much different when you're like doing this by yourself, right? Because I'm trying to get all this. Okay, so all right. So they're referring to the video that I did a few weeks back. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 weeks back. And I'm talking about entering a relationship with another person. Like, how do you know if you're ready to be in a relationship with somebody else if you're still healing from some childhood trauma? And I talked a lot about not expecting other people to meet our needs. If we have unmet childhood needs, unmet needs that are left over from when we were traumatized as children, if we get into relationships with other people and we are showing up in that relationship seeking for someone else to meet our needs, then we could be setting ourselves up for disappointment and we could be setting ourselves up for re-traumatization. And the reason is that a lot of the time survivors have abandonment issues because they were either abandoned physically, emotionally, or both. by one or both of their primary caregivers. Perhaps in a multitude of the clients that I personally minister to, and a lot of the community members here, one of the caregivers was the primary abuser, and then the secondary caregiver, another one of the main caregivers, didn't do anything about it, or didn't protect them, or perhaps enable that abuse in some way. And so therefore the child, or AKA you, the adult now, who are still dealing with some childhood trauma, you were abandoned by the one person that should have been protecting you, and you were abused by another person, and you were not, so you were completely abandoned. So the one of the people that was supposed to be protecting you was actually abusing you, and the other one wasn't protecting you from the person who was abusing you. And so we feel abandoned. And so when we were abandoned physically, emotionally, or both by our primary caregivers, or by people who were supposed to love us, there is a deep, deep, deep betrayal that goes on there. And dealing with the ramifications and the realizations of that betrayal can be life-altering, and it can be devastating. And it could be something where you have unprocessed grief, and you go into every single relationship not really knowing ahead of time, but you end up feeling as though either A, you hope that your needs are finally met for the very first time ever, or B, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you just know that everything's going to come crumbling down, and you're sort of walking on eggshells waiting for the rug to get ripped out from underneath you. So what the person here in this question was referring to is, what do you mean by meeting our needs that were not met in childhood, meeting those needs by ourselves? What I mean is really getting in touch with who we are now, and getting in touch with the needs that were not met as children, and somehow finding a way to meet those needs now in and of ourselves as adults. Here, let me stop screen sharing and look at you guys in the eyes really quick. I just want to look at you in the face. So what I mean by this is, many of you remember the video that I did with Bobby about, I want to say almost a year ago now. Maybe it was about like 10 months ago, 9 or 10 months ago. That was a video when I shared with you guys one of the most tremendous acts of self-care that I had ever experienced. And that was that when I was a child, one of my needs was to have privacy, and to feel safe, and to feel secure, and to like my environment. I never really had an environment that I really enjoyed or liked, and I didn't feel safe, and it wasn't something that I could really call my own. Even if I did have my own room, it wasn't something that I really felt at liberty to do what I wanted, because I wasn't allowed to put pinholes in the walls to hang up posters, or like those Mylar balloons. I loved balloons when I was little, and I always wanted to pin them up. And I just had all these different like childhood things that were like, I never really felt like anything was really my space. And I went straight from living with my parents to being semi-homeless, to moving in with my boyfriend, who I had met when I was 14. And at the time I was 17 when this was happening. And then I ended up getting married and having my son. Like boom, 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 boom. And it wasn't the healthiest of relationships. And so I went from being this child to like a baby having a baby. And I had all these unmet needs. And then I was a full-time single mom for 17 years. And then my son left and went into the military, and he enlisted in the Marine Corps during a time of war, and I was devastated. And of course that was an abandonment trigger for me, and I had no idea that it was going to trigger a whole bunch of, like, the whole house of cards came tumbling down, and I had no idea that everything was really connected at the time, even though I had been working on my stuff for like 10 solid years up until that point. I hadn't really delved deep enough to know that everything was really enmeshed and connected, and that everything was going to tumble down around me. So I had all these unmet needs. There is a point here, I promise. So the unmet needs that I had for safety, to feel like I could call something my own, to feel like I had privacy, to feel like I could make something pretty and it would just be for me. And I never had that. And so what I did last year, about a little over a year ago, I renovated my office, the office that I'm sitting in right now. And I did something I've never done before. I mean, I researched it online. I went to the hardware store. I learned how to use a drill and hammers, and I taped and I prepped and I sanded and I painted and I hung these pretty princess like fairy lights. Here, maybe I could show you guys. So I did this like awesome job of making this room my very, 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 very own. And I had never done anything like that before. Whoa, now this is all really, really wobbly. I had never done anything like that before. And so I had this deep, 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 deep need. And I was almost waiting for my husband to like recommend it, like, honey, maybe you should make the office your own, because that's something you should really experience. And I was almost waiting for my husband to sort of lead the way, and that never really happened. I went from like when my son left to go to the Marine Corps, immediately I started dating my husband. We were dating at the time. This is back in 2010. And then we dated for about a year. We got married. And so if you want to like do the fast timeline, I was born into abuse. I was sexually abused and exploited and every other way abused and exploited by my family of origin and loved ones, in air quotes. And then I was semi-homeless, kicked out, even though I was an honor roll student, graduated with honors, everything. I was kicked out because I wasn't even good enough to like live with my family because I was no longer wanted. And I was told my whole life I was supposed to be aborted. So, and I was unwanted. So I was unwanted, abused, exploited, and wanted to die. And then I was an honor student. I overperformed. I just did everything perfect as much as I could, but I still got kicked out and was semi-homeless. So I ended up living with my boyfriend, ended up getting married, having my son. And then my son's dad left and he was like, do over. And so I was a single mom for 17 years, pretty much. I mean, there was a period of time in there when I wasn't a single mom, but that was very, 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 very toxic and abusive. And it was a very abusive relationship. I know, shocker. And then 17 years of being a single mom. And then I was thrust into being by myself for the very first time for 1 year. And that went really well. It was liberating and awesome, but like I never really made my place my own. And then I was married. And so anyway, I did this tremendous act of self-care. I met this need by myself. That's what I mean by meeting the need that was never met by yourself. Like speaking up for yourself, doing something for yourself, even though it feels like the wrong thing to do, because a lot of us were trained and taught from a very young age that we need to do what we're told, speak when spoken to, be seen, not heard. And we were expected through words and actions or silence. Let's not forget the silence. We were expected to perform in a certain way in order to earn the approval of others. Otherwise, there would be consequences, big time consequences. And so there are all these unmet needs that it's hard to really put a name to them. It's hard to really put a finger on exactly what to call these unmet needs, but I had been doing my work enough, doing the deep work of inner child work and just working through and processing my grief of, the loss of my innocence, the loss of the relationships I thought that I had, the loss of a life that I really wanted to live, but it was just something totally different than what I had imagined. And what do you mean my entire family is like, what do you mean they don't really love me, and they're just emotionally unavailable, and they weren't raised in an environment that was healthy, and so there's nothing left for me. And I was just sort of I was so completely abandoned, and I was truly orphaned in a way. People who are actually orphans and their parents die when they're really, really, really young would probably disagree with me and say, you weren't orphaned, you had parents. Who do you think you are calling yourself an orphan? Like, that's reserved for people that don't have parents. But if you think about it, you guys, many of us didn't have parents, in air quotes, in the way that parents parent their children. They encourage, they love, they nurture, they approve of, they teach, they instruct, they model behaviors that are healthy. They raise their children up and teach them the way to go and teach them what to do. And they're patient and they're kind, and they, you know, oh, take pictures. You're taking your first steps, and look, your first tooth, and you know, like that kind of parenting, like the kind of parenting that we all dream of. So if we didn't have those needs met, I'm not assuming that every one of you watching has never had any of your needs met, because that would be wrong. But I'm just saying, if you're on this channel and you're an adult survivor of childhood abuse and your abuse happened within your family of origin, which is many of us, and if it was a one-off event or if the abuse happened outside of the home, maybe this topic isn't something that you resonate with, and you don't need self-advocacy. You're like, I have a voice of my own and I'm super awesome. Thanks, Athena. I'm going to move on now. Cheers. That's fine. But if you are struggling because you know you have unmet needs, you don't know how to meet them yourself, you're looking for them in other relationships, your relationships are failing, you're being set up to fail, you feel frustrated, and you're like, how do I advocate for myself? How do I find my voice? How do I adult? I want to adult. I need to be adulting all over the place, Athena. I need to be an adult every day, but I feel like I'm a child. I have a really interesting email from someone that also requested this topic. And in fact, I need to find that email while I'm talking with you guys right now. And because it's about, you know, that dissonance that we have when we don't really feel like adults, even though we know we're adults. And the person who sent this nails it, the way she words it, and it just really plays in nicely with how I've done this self-advocacy, how I titled it self-advocacy. So I'm getting there. I know I am. I have way too many unread emails. Here we go. Okay. So this gal, I will not use her name. Now I'm getting it over my nose again. I'm hopefully that I'm not still sick. I was getting a little sick last week, remember? Okay, so this gal says, go down to the original message. Discovering your YouTube videos and web pages is so helpful and validating for me. Yay, I'm so happy. Okay, she says, if you could discuss this topic. Being stuck, in quotes, as a child, seeing your body getting older and your peers growing up and leading adult lives all around you, and you remain stuck. Experiencing the increasing dissonance between your inner age and your outer age is really disturbing. Example, finding a gray hair when you felt like you were just in kindergarten yesterday. Thank you for your help, Athena. So again, like when we're stuck in child mode or we have unmet childhood needs, we kind of are like, wow, I'm doing all this adult stuff. And it's like, but I don't feel like I'm competent. I know I'm doing it. I just don't feel competent doing it. And I know I have these unmet needs. I'm trying to have them met in a relationship. I'm looking for someone to complete me. But yet I keep finding the same person. I'm attracting the same type of person. I had dinner with a very dear girlfriend of mine the other night, and she's like, I'm attracting the same type of person, Athena. I'm attracting the same type of person. And so I had to ask her a few questions about her childhood. And she was like, how would you know that? How would you know that? How would you know that? And it's just kind of like once you're sort of on this path and you are working on your childhood junk and unmet needs and just the things that you know were never processed or worked on, or just needs that needed to be met that weren't met, then it's easy to sort of see the world through the lens of perhaps you have some unprocessed grief. Perhaps you have some unprocessed trauma. Like it's easy, to me, I notice it, like it shows up and I'm like, I know what that is. That's unprocessed trauma. I can tell. So what my goal in this particular video tonight, this Q&A, I see a whole bunch of questions coming in. I haven't read them yet, but I do see that they're coming in, and I'm going to go over there and read those right now. But my goal in this video tonight, you guys, besides that, I'm just so glad that you're here supporting one another on the Twitter chat stream using the hashtag No More Shame. Besides the fact that you're in the YouTube chat box over there supporting one another and showing up, and you're just coming back week after week after week. You're coming back because you really want to heal and you want to support other people, and you've made lifelong relationships that you're super stoked to have made that you would have never made previously, and except for that you're here in this community. So my goal is for you to walk away from tonight's video knowing not only what self-advocacy is, sorry, like I'm having some like shirt issues tonight, you guys, so pardon me. Not only will you know what self-advocacy is, but you'll have an idea of the benefits of advocating for yourself. And this whole topic, this whole term, self-advocacy, many people are confused by it, and they get really irritated with themselves for not knowing what it is quicker. And so there's a little bit of shame attached to that there, or they automatically think that it does not apply to them. Because they're like, what do I advocate for? Or they think, you know, it's different for you, Athena. You live in an area where you have access to resources and you can advocate for yourself because you have access to resources that I don't have access to. I mean, I have a gal that you know, she's been on telling me that she doesn't have access. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm on Google. Like, seriously, I'm on Google. I'm on Google, I'm on Wikipedia, I'm on Wikimedia, I'm on every possible link, I'm on SlideShare. I am scouring the internet to find answers to the questions I have regarding my healing, because I deserve to know. No one's gonna do it for me. No one's gonna hold my hand like they should have when I was little and said, you know what, you're struggling with this. I'm going to take you to the doctor, and I want you to receive the proper care that you deserve, Athena. And I love you, and I want what's best for you, and I want to make sure you get the best possible care. Guess what, guys? No one did that. That wasn't a consistent thing in my life. And so now that I'm an adult, I'm going to pull up my big girl panties and I'm going to scour the internet. And along with all of the training I have, the schooling, all of the books I've bought on dialectical behavior therapy, cognitive behavior therapy, neurolinguistic programming, EMDR, you name it, every single modality that there is that helps the trauma survivors, in addition to all the resources I can find on the internet, that is how I gain access to the resources that I need. And that is what I do, because I can. And it's not because I have an exorbitant amount of time and a lot of discretionary income where I can just sit around and be like, you know what, my full-time job is going to be to heal. And no, like I'm just taking the spare time I have in between all the things that I'm doing. And I'm going to not only pour myself into learning how to heal from childhood sexual abuse and heal from childhood trauma, but I can't wait to share it with you guys. Something magical and amazing, miraculous happens when you decide to heal in public on YouTube. Because I'm telling you, things happen. You're just like, wow, I never really realized that I've come so far, because all of a sudden I'll get a comment on a video from like a year and a half or 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh wow, like I've been through a lot in the last 3 years. Like, I'm so happy that I'm doing this. This is amazing. This is an awesome journey that pays dividends. You know, I'm helping other people heal, and you guys can do the same. And I say this to every single one of my clients, and I'm going to say it to you guys, and then I'm going to answer your questions because they're all right there. I'm going to say this. If I can do this, you can do it better. If I can scour the internet and I can learn how to heal from childhood trauma, and I can learn what self-advocacy is, and I can take all the classes that I can find the time to do, and I can drive halfway across the island, like an hour each way, to attend you know, a talk by someone who knows something more than I do, or buy a book on thriftbooks.com where you can get books for like $2, or buy things used on Amazon or whatever. I'm in it. I'm all in. I'm all in. And I can't wait to share it all with you guys, because I'm hoping that you will pay it forward. I'm hoping you are going to take everything I give you and that you're going to share it with everybody who will listen. There are people out there in this community that will only learn from your voice because they need to hear your voice. They need to see your growth. They need to see that you are healing and that they can do it too. So I digress. I'm going to breathe now. I'm going to take a drink of water, and I'm going to read some of your questions. Oh my goodness, I think there's quite a few coming in. So here we go. Okay, thanks for your patience, you guys. Okay, here we go. Joey says, it is so hard for me to stand up for myself, especially against my supporters or my therapist. They know what's best for me, so how can I second guess them or tell them no? Any suggestions for a change? Oh, well, have the liberty and luxury of knowing a little bit about your situation, but I don't want to take anything for granted, Joey. I don't want to assume that I know more than what I know. So I would say that if you are not, this is my advice. This is my advice, Joey, to you and to anybody else who feels that they're not receiving the care that they really deserve, and they're getting perhaps unhelpful support, unhelpful information. They're not receiving the support that they so deserve. I would do my very best to look past them and try to find the proper support. Look beyond where they're at, and look and see if there's someone else that you can receive support from, and someone, or even just do some I know that Joey, I've referred some books to you. That's where I would start. I would start reading some books that you know are really helpful, and then I would look for perhaps in-person care there locally, and interview these people that you're going to be going to as a caregiver, because you deserve to receive excellent care. And if you are not satisfied with the therapist or the practitioner who is helping you at this time, I highly recommend finding someone that you are happy with, someone who is trauma-informed. And remember, we talk a lot about trauma-informed care on this channel. That's the left hand, that's your root trauma, okay? Root trauma from childhood. Right hand, maladaptive coping strategies. These things that we do to numb stuff and avoid as a result of the childhood trauma. So a trauma-informed practitioner always keeps both in mind. Yes, we want you to kick the addiction, break the habit, stop people pleasing, no more overeating. Let's cut back on the sugary foods, especially if you're struggling with some diabetic issues, or over-the-counter drugs, or even, sometimes there's illegal drug use, or whatever the addiction might be, gambling, shopping, video game addiction, social media, busyness, whatever. Yes, we want to work on those coping strategies, but there's this childhood trauma over here that is super painful, like more painful than anything, that your brain and your body are running. They want to numb stuff and avoid at all costs, because dealing with this root trauma is so painful. So if we keep in mind the reason these maladaptive coping strategies are showing up, these maladaptive behaviors, these unhealthy coping mechanisms, the reason they're here is because this root trauma is so painful. So let's keep both in mind. Let's work on the symptoms. And then once we get these addictions and these behaviors shrunk to the point where they're not ruling your life and they're absent, then we can really work on this root trauma. But we have to always keep this root trauma in mind. That's trauma-informed care, and that's what you deserve, Joey. That's what you deserve. So if you're not getting that, find someone who is trauma-informed. And if they don't know what trauma-informed is, run. If you're telling them, I need somebody who's trauma-informed, they're like, well, what's that? Then they're not trauma-informed. And then you need to run. So I hope that helps, Joey. Dawn says, it is hard to give up the hope that someone else would be there, but the truth is no one was. Yeah, that is really hard. I remember, I thought that, in fact, I want to encourage you guys that just like much of the healing we do on this journey, giving up the hope that someone's going to be there for us is not something that is a one and done. like how Bobby and I talk a lot about, like, you can't just wave a wand, one and done. Okay, no one's going to be there for us, bippity boppity boop, and then just move on. Like, it doesn't really work that way. Grieving the reality that we were betrayed and abandoned, and that we weren't parented the way that children need to be parented. We weren't encouraged. We weren't supported. We weren't nurtured. We weren't loved. They weren't kind. We didn't have the basic needs for food, shelter, safety, clothing, love, acceptance. Grieving that and accepting that doesn't just happen once. It is a lifelong journey. And the quicker we start that grieving process and really accept that reality for what it is, the sooner we can heal. Because if we refuse to accept the reality, there ain't no healing to be happening. There's no healing. There's no healing if we do not accept the fact that we didn't receive what we needed. We can't, if we're on this YouTube channel, which we are, we're here together, we're here. We cannot go into fantasy land and say we weren't abused. We were loved and cared for, and maybe our parents did the best they could. And, you know, maybe your parents did do the best they could, but I know a lot that didn't. And even if our loved ones or parents or abusers weren't raised in a healthy environment, they could have figured out how to break the cycle. And the reason I can say that is because I wasn't raised in a healthy environment, but yet I figured out a way to raise my child and not sexually abuse him and exploit him and torture him and lend him out and trade him for goods and services and screw up his life forever. I broke the cycle. I figured out a way. No one gave me a manual. It didn't come with the baby. Not only did no one teach me how to change a diaper, but they didn't give me a manual on how to not fuck up my kid and how to not mess with his head and how to not ruin him forever. I had to figure that out on my own. And I am just praying that when he hits 30 or 40, that all of the memories that from me losing my temper and not knowing how to raise him and working through my junk and all of that, I can just pray that he forgives me because I've owned it all and said, hey, I was horrible for a long time and I'm trying so hard not to be horrible and I love you. So yeah, the sooner we accept the fact that we weren't given what we needed and we weren't raised in that healthy, loving, kind, supportive environment and we weren't shown approval and love and affection and all of those things, then the sooner we can heal. And accepting the reality that the parents or the loved ones that we wished we would have had were not what we had, then the sooner we will heal. But the longer we hold out hope that they will someday be, then we are prolonging our healing process and we stay stuck for longer. And I will not pretend that this isn't painful. This is probably one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my entire life. Childbirth is nothing compared to healing from childhood abuse. Childbirth is over in like 24 hours. I was in labor for a really long time, obviously, but the pain from processing childhood trauma and releasing the need to have loving, kind parents and releasing my need for a healthy upbringing and releasing my hope of having those loving, kind, healthy relationships, it has been torturous. I think that sawing off one of my limbs with a hacksaw would have been less painful than really accepting the fact that what I dreamed of and wanted my entire life will never be. So I won't pretend this is easy, but I will tell you it's possible, and I know that it is, because if I can do it, you can do it better. And I believe that. With all that I am, I believe that. So I'm going to read the next question. It has been very hard though, Dawn. I agree. It has been so hard. It is so hard. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing though, both of you, Joey and Dawn. Grace Hope says, I cannot stand up or advocate for myself because I'm afraid that if I ask for something, it will be dumb or I will turn people away. Grace Hope, I want to validate you, and that is a very understandable fear to have. I am afraid that if I ask for something, it will be dumb or I will turn people away. It is a very valid fear because it is the unknown. It is self-advocacy is the unknown right now, and fear of the unknown is natural. And what makes it even harder, folks, is that we are grown-ass men and women trying to figure out how to adult, and when we should have been learning for years and years and years and years and years as children how to grow up into be an adult. And then we sort of stay stuck because our development, our brain development, our emotional development, our social development is stunted because we are spending all of our time surviving childhood rather than thriving. And so I want to validate you, Grace Hope, that it is a natural and expected fear that you have. But I want to encourage you to try anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Be courageous. You can borrow my courage. I will lend you my courage any day of the week, Grace Hope. And you can borrow it all. You can have all of my courage. And I want you to feel the fear, and I want you to do it anyway because you're worth it. Because you're worth it. Okay? JJ Strong, and you might be pleasantly surprised, Grace Hope, even though you are afraid that it will be dumb and that you will turn people away, you might be surprised at the people who rally around you and cheer for you. Because I'll be one of them. Many of us will be. So I want to encourage you to do that because you're worth it. JJ Strong says, so true. Then and even now, it is so hard to spill your deepest secrets to loved ones and then receive no support. I can't stand up for myself or ask for help either. I feel like a burden. Oh my gosh, JJ. Are we like the same human? Are we the same person? We're the same person. I could have written every one of those words, JJ. It is so painful and so hard to spill our deepest secrets to loved ones, in air quotes. I usually use air quotes when I talk about loved ones because that's not what love is. Let's just be real. The love I received as a child was not love. I did not receive love as a child. Love is patient and kind, and love protects, love guards. And that's not what I received. I received abuse and torture and a lot of things, but not love. So it is definitely painful and scary to spill our deepest secrets to those who were supposed to love us and then receive no support. I have had that happen more times than I can count, and it is so painful. I want to validate that. And I want to encourage you to reword this statement, though, and I want to encourage every single one of you to reword this statement. You say, I can't stand up for myself or ask for help either. I feel like a burden. I want to encourage you, JJ, to reframe that and say, I have been struggling to stand up for myself or ask for help. Up until this point, I have not been able to stand up for myself or ask for help. I struggle to stand up for myself or ask for help. Do not say I can't. Do not say you can't, because you can. You can. Someday you can. Do not ever, ever cant yourself all over the place. Just like how we all should not should ourselves all over the place. Do not cant yourself all over the place. No, no, no. And I want to share with you, JJ, I feel like a burden also. And I was told that I was a burden. I was told. I knew I should have had an abortion. I knew it. Those some of my earliest memories were those words. And even though there were thousands of words spoken to me after those words, those are some of the loudest words I hear in my head. So I feel like a burden. I sometimes struggle to feel worthy of breathing the air I breathe. But no, not the truth. Not the truth. And if I can do it, JJ, you can do it better. Yes. Heroes don't wear capes. Hi. You're amazing. Heroes don't wear capes says, I epically fail over and over to self-advocate, Somehow I set myself up to be exploited at work or life in general. Every time I think I've learned and next time will be different, but no, same thing. I want to encourage you, heroes don't wear capes. This was me. I could have written every one of those words. That was so me. All I can tell you is that it gets better over time. Practice does, practice, where are my Kenyans out there? What does Katie Morton say? Practice towards progress. Practice towards progress, not practice makes perfect, I believe is what Katie says. I'm a Kenyan, so I believe that is what Katie says. Practice towards progress, not practice makes perfect, towards perfection. So just keep practicing Heroes Don't Wear Capes, because I failed so many times, more than I can even count. Fail, 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 fail. And I set myself up to be exploited. I set myself up to be used, abused. I set myself up so many times to be manipulated and just to be duped. And it's so painful, but it's getting better over time. So I just want to validate how you're feeling, but I promise you it gets better. And if I can do it, you can do it better. Oh, Heroes Don't Wear Capes goes on to say, assertiveness and self-advocacy. So not my strong suit. It wasn't mine either. I'm just getting there. It's like 17 years into my healing journey and I'm finally like getting there. So don't give up on yourself. I've recently established in therapy that I set myself up time and time again to be exploited in some way. Yes, I did the same thing. I did the same thing for so long. I sought after the same types of people that I was used to. People that were similar to the people that I knew in my childhood, whether it was a loved one or a parent. I surrounded myself with people who were similar. So you are not alone. Kira Heller says, I often feel like a 9 to 12-year-old child in an adult's body. Amen, sister. Yes, I feel like it too. In fact, sometimes you guys, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but a couple years ago, I would be out driving and I would be doing some normal mundane task like going to the bank, making a deposit, paying a bill, going to the market to pick up almond milk or juice or vegetables or something, or vitamin supplements. And I would just have one of those moments like the gal in the email said, where I was like, I mean, wasn't I literally like just in school yesterday? Like, this is so weird. Here I am. I'm this I'm an adult and I'm buying vitamins, and I wasn't allowed to take vitamins when I was a little girl because they cost money. Why spend money on vitamins when you could spend it on drugs? So I wasn't allowed to take vitamins. And so if I'm out buying vitamins or doing something that's like childhood related that reminds me, I'll just be like, wow, I am adulting today. And I'll have to just text one of my girlfriends. First of all, I can tell I'm in an emotional flashback when I'm doing these things. And then all of a sudden I'm sort of like excited that I'm adulting. And then all of a sudden I can feel that the crash is going to come. And so I do the Michelle Rosenthal where I tap my left shoulder and I tap my right shoulder, or I say stop or cancel, and I tap my left shoulder and I tap my right shoulder. And then I engage with someone in a loving conversation, whether it's through text message or phone call or someone in person. And I get myself out of that emotional flashback. So I want to encourage you to try the same, because it is a trip to feel like you're just like a little kid, like a tween. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I'm like a 43-year-old woman here. This is crazy. So I definitely identify with what you're saying there. Heroes Don't Wear Capes says, does self-advocacy have anything to do with assertiveness? Yes, it does. And I'm going to have an awesome SlideShare presentation for you in just a moment, I promise. I just want to answer everybody's questions first, and then I will go to the SlideShare presentation and talk about assertiveness, because everything's connected. Ashton Smith, are you new? I'm excited to see you here with us, Ashton Smith. And if you've been here before and I'm not remembering you, I sincerely apologize. But if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Ashton Smith says, I have a very outgoing personality, but I feel as unsure as a child when I advocate for myself. How can I change this? Any ideas? Yes, what a perfect question. It's almost like someone's going to think I planted you there. Like, hey, Ashton Smith, like come and ask this question during our chat because it's the perfect question. But that's a perfect idea to ask that question. I do have ideas to share with you, and I'm going to answer them in the SlideShare presentation because over time, as we practice in private and practice in public, in safe situations, whether it's private or public, over time, it becomes a little bit more effortless and the fear goes away and we start feeling a little bit more confident. But I do still struggle with this. One of the reasons, I can only speak for myself, Ashton, but one of the reasons that I feel unsure like a child when I try to advocate for myself is because the moment that this opportunity presents itself, where I am placed in a situation where I need to or have an opportunity to advocate for myself or stand up for myself, it is a situation in which I would normally freeze and then flee, or freeze and then fawn, try to talk my way through it and people please my way through it rather than advocate for myself. And so what I'm referring to here, there's a great Pete Walker book called Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. And it talks a lot about the 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, Ashton. And I know for me personally, I am a freeze fawn when I'm in an unhealthy or potentially manipulative toxic situation. And I am a freeze flee when I am in a healthy dialogue, healthy relationship that has triggered me into child mode or into a childhood memory, into an emotional flashback. So what I can share with you is how I changed this was becoming intimately familiar with and acutely aware of my trauma response style, my trauma response type, and learned to be very mindful, very present, very fully present, very self-aware. And I could sense and feel when I was being triggered into child mode so that I could identify that that's what was happening, pause, recognize my surroundings, whether that is light aqua paint. Those are fairy lights. My curtains are white. Those are flowers on my desk. My phone is here. This is yellow. This is my computer. Whether like just being fully present and naming the things around me just to get me out of that mode, out of that emotional flashback, and then go, okay, how can I proceed as though I were advocating for someone else, but actually advocate for myself? Because we will often, Ashton, if you're like me, you have a hard time advocating for yourself, but if it's for someone else, someone you care about, someone you love, your child, your pet, your best friend, a community member, a coworker, or even a parent or a sibling, you're like, wow, mama bear, papa bear, whatever. And you're just like, you're all over it. And you're fully able to advocate for somebody else. But then when it's for ourselves, we freeze, or whatever our trauma response type is, and then we avoid. We avoid advocating for ourselves by falling into our normal behavior, which would be your trauma response. So if you can pause and be mindful and really self-aware, even do the cancel, tap, tap, smile, engage, the Michelle Rosenthal. If someone can find that meme, just Google Michelle Rosenthal. Oh gosh, how do you say it? Hey, Matt. Or if any of my clients are here, I think all of my clients have this. I've sent it to you. Or Matt, Matt, could you please tweet out or share in the YouTube chat box that Michelle Rosenthal, the cancel, tap, tap, smile, engage little meme? It's really, 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 really helpful. And it helped us break out of our normal trauma responses. So hopefully that is helpful, Ashen. I am going to go into greater detail as I do the slide share in a moment. Jess says, grieving the reality that we were not having our needs met and a safe childhood is the hardest thing when trying to heal my DID. Yes, and for those of you who are new here, DID is dissociative identity disorder, and formerly known as multiple personality disorder. Also, if you are not DID, but you do tend to dissociate, you're not alone. A lot of us who live with symptoms of complex PTSD, symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, symptoms of complex trauma, one of the symptoms is dissociation, anxiety, PTSD symptoms. That is straight up textbook childhood trauma recovery right there. So if you had a traumatic childhood in whatever way, loss of a loved one, natural disaster, abuse, toxic environment, bullying, deadly disease, major death of a pet, anything on the ACEs, anything on the ACEs test, go to aces2high.com if you want to know your ACEs score. If someone could link up that video to the ACEs video I just did, if that resonates with you at all, then yeah, one of the symptoms from childhood trauma, especially if you're living with complex PTSD or what will in the future be known as complex PTSD, it's not technically recognized by the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, 5th edition, but is dissociation. So dissociation, I don't know, if perhaps Kalisha or Maggie could post up a wiki link on dissociation in case anyone's wondering what dissociation is. So yeah, Jess, I'm so glad you're here. Jess is over on Twitter. I believe is it Dissociative Jess? DID Jess? I forget. Anyway, Jess is a wealth of information. Tons of support and encouragement and compassion there. And it is so painful to deal with unmet childhood needs when trying to heal complex trauma, whether it's dissociation, whether it's DID, whether it's PTSD, whether it's anxiety, agoraphobia. When we're trying to heal something else going on, having to accept the reality that the care and love we deserved and that we didn't get that, it's just like a time bomb. It's like an atom bomb that lands on us while we're trying to heal this other thing over here. You know, it's like Bobby and I often had shared with you guys that, you know, trauma is cumulative, meaning that one layer of trauma, it strengthens the one beneath it. It's like layer. And so if you are traumatized by something, it triggers all the other layers. So you don't ever just get to slice off a pretty little piece of pie, like a triangle, and just heal that one little piece of trauma, like your DID, or like your anxiety, or an eating disorder, or, your pet dies, a parent dies, your abuser dies, natural disaster comes, tornado, hurricane, you name it. You try to deal with one little tiny piece of trauma and a whole lot of it. You're dealing with all of it. You're dealing with all of your childhood, all of the unmet needs. You're dealing with the betrayal. And on top of it, there are physical symptoms. We've done many videos. Harriet, if you could pop up a YouTube card on autoimmune diseases in abuse survivors. Autoimmune diseases, you guys. Many of us are living with chronic pain or autoimmune diseases, and it is directly connected to childhood trauma. And there are not a lot of doctors out there that are saying, hey, did you know that your lupus is directly connected to the fact that you were raised in an alcoholic home? No, the medical model does not honor or acknowledge the fact, the reality, that a lot of the autoimmune disease that are out there are because of your body is trying to heal emotional trauma from 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's a lot going on, you guys. It's a lot. So it's all connected. So yeah, I agree with you, Jess. Grieving the reality that we were not having our needs met and a safe childhood is the hardest thing to deal with. And Jess also says, I am one of those people who tries to say my parents did the best they could, but now seeing some ways that they were selfish. Yeah, it's really hard, Jess. Oh my goodness. It is so, 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 so hard. So, so hard. Hey, Shy Sharon. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a runny nose. Trying to kick this. Shy Sharon says, I'm so happy you're here, Sharon. She didn't say that, I did. Shy Sharon says, I told my therapist that I need to be more vulnerable with her. How do you begin? Well, Sharon, first of all, that is hugely brave of you and very self-aware. So self-awareness, I believe, is the first step. And how you begin being vulnerable with your therapist is just by choosing. You're going to show up and say, you know, I'm going to be vulnerable today. I'm not going to throw up my defense mechanism. I'm not going to throw up my walls. I'm going to sit. And if I need to cry, I'm going to cry. If I need to scream, I'm going to scream. If I need to feel a lot of different feelings that I'm not comfortable with, I'm going to do it. And that's only if you have deemed your therapist to be a safe person, Shy Sharon. I want to underscore that in bold right there. If your therapist is a safe person, then it would be safe to be vulnerable with your therapist. And the first step is to be self-aware enough to know that you're not being vulnerable and to make a choice. But if your therapist is not a safe person, if you intuitively know, even subconsciously, that your therapist is not a safe person, then there's probably a reason you're not being vulnerable. Because our subconscious knows. And like we always say, the subconscious will win 100 times out of 100. We can consciously say, I'm going in this direction and this is a safe person and that relationship is going to succeed and I'm going to do really, really well. But if we're terrified and if we're headed in a direction with some toxic people on the horizon, our subconscious is going to be like throwing on the brakes and our subconscious will win 100 times out of 100. So hopefully that was helpful, Shy Sharon. Sid, hi Sid. I haven't seen you in a little bit. In fact, is this the same Sid that I have communicated with previously? If so, hello, and if you are a new Sid, welcome. Sid says, it is so hard for me to self-advocate because I have a voice in my head also saying, you're wrong, you're stupid, you're crazy, etc. Oh, Sid, we have the same voices. My voices tell me that I'm not enough. My voices tell me that I'm unwanted. My voices tell me that I should have been aborted. My voices tell me I'm unworthy. I should be doing more. And my voices tell me all kinds of crap. Oh, and sometimes my voice is in my head. I think they're my husband's voice. How cuckoo is that? I had to write myself a note. I had an audible hallucination about 4 years ago. 3 years ago? A little over 3 years ago. This audible hallucination was in my kitchen. And it was right when I was having like a traumatic break. I didn't have a psychotic break. I had a traumatic break. Psychosis and trauma do behave very similarly. So I was having a traumatic break. Part of my traumatic break was that I was having an audible hallucination. I don't recommend having an audible hallucination. It will send you batshit crazy. I mean that in the most professional way possible, of course. Remember, this is from a lived experience perspective. My audible hallucination said, "Must be nice. Must be nice." It was a voice from my childhood, but for some reason I thought it was my husband's voice. I had to write myself a note, Sid, that said, the must be nice voice is not my husband. So, yeah. Sometimes we have to tell those voices in our head to be quiet. We need to silence them. We need to do something brave that drowns out those voices so that our courageous voices are louder than our fearful voices. Easier said than done sometimes, but I'm telling you it's possible. If I can do it, you can do it better. So, Sid, it is definitely hard for me to self-advocate also, because I do have voices in my head telling me all kinds of other shit. But I'm telling you right now that you will win. You do not have to listen to those voices. You get the deciding vote. But you're not alone. I have those voices too. One of my friends and colleagues calls it the itty bitty shitty committee. The itty bitty shitty committee says, yeah. So whatever your itty bitty shitty committee says, the itty bitty shitty committee doesn't win. You win. You need to be louder and move forward. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It works, Sid. I promise you. I would not lead you astray. Kira says, I find myself sticking up for others all the time, but when I need to stand up for myself, I just shut down or I stammer. This was me for a long, long time, Kira. You are not alone. I promise you, if you just keep pressing on, keep moving forward, I promise you it gets easier and better over time. I promise, promise, promise. Dominique in the house. Dominique says, self-advocacy feels tricky. I feel like my abuser created the perfect monster, literally argued me into agreeing with verbal abuse. Oh boy. Oh, do I know this? Oh my goodness. Or the best, this is the best one, Dominique. Not as good as yours. How about second in line to your abuser arguing with you into agreeing with the verbal abuse? How about when your abuser pokes at you and prods you and lures you into a disagreement and then tells you you're the crazy one? Oh, wait, I have a better one. Just as good, actually. Your abuser or abusive spouse or abusive person or whoever, just fill in the blank, asks you questions, and when you answer the question, they tell you that you're driving them to drink. And then they leave and go on some sort of a weird like weekend drinking binge. And then they call you to come get them so that they're not drunk driving. And when you don't know where they're at, they say for you to hang up and dial *69 so you can call the number back so you can ask someone else to find out the address where they're at so you can come get them so that they don't drive drunk and then die or kill somebody else. Because if they drunk drive and die or kill somebody else, it'll be all your fault because you were the one that said something that drove them to drink to begin with, and then you didn't go pick them up from drunk driving. And I'm like, can you see the crazy making, like, can you just see the crazy train that I just hopped on? And it just was a crazy train and I just went on it. And this was my life. Like, this isn't really funny, but I mean, this was my life. You can't make this shit up, right? Like, they ask you a question that they don't want the answer to. When you answer, they tell you you're driving them to drink. They leave, they drink, and then they say they're going to drive drunk unless you come get them, but they don't know where they are because they're too drunk to know where they are. So instead of handing the phone to someone who's not drunk to give you the address on where to go, with my sleeping child in the back seat, by the way. I'm supposed to do this with my sleeping child in the back seat. I'm supposed to take my child out of bed, put him in the back seat, and go drive to an address that I don't know where it is because I have to hang up the phone and dial *69 back in the day, right? I'm dating myself. To hope that someone else answers the phone to give me the address of the place where this person is drinking so that they don't drive drunk and kill somebody or hurt themselves. Otherwise, it'll be all my fault. Oh, Lord. Wow. I'm not on that crazy train anymore. I don't have to dance. I don't have to do that dance anymore. No, no, no. Dominique, any of that resonate with you? Young at Heart says, I always need validations before I can believe in myself. Me too. I mean, not always, but like it certainly helps. It's hard to believe in yourself when you've been trained and beat down emotionally your whole life and told not to believe in yourself through words and actions or otherwise. Let's not forget the silence. Let's not forget when loved ones withhold their love unless you behave perfectly. Let's not forget that one. That's just as abusive as words and actions sometimes. That's emotional abuse, like horrific. And it leaves such a scar. And it sets you up for failure in every other relationship. Yeah, Young at Heart. This is like a big me too over here. Stu says, can using mindfulness be helpful in trying to apply? If so, what types of mindfulness could work? Mindfulness. What types of mindfulness? I don't know of any like types of mindfulness. Being mindful is just choosing to be fully present. And I guess being mindful of your surroundings, being mindful of how it is that you're feeling. If you're feeling a certain fear, trying to figure out where it shows up in your body. Like for instance, if I have a fear, like every Monday before I do these videos, I have like almost like I feel like I need to hide, like I get afraid to show up. Like for some reason I'm going to be judged or there's going to be a troll or I'm going to get, pounced on by people who tell me that I'm ridiculous. And like sometimes that happens, but not a lot. But every Monday before I go on and I start to feel like afraid, if I'm sitting with myself and I'm being very mindful and I try to find out where do I feel that fear, I can usually pinpoint it, usually try to pinpoint it with one finger. If I close my eyes, it'll be somewhere right around in here, somewhere near my vocal cords. Sometimes it's like right here. Sometimes it's right here near my esophagus. Sometimes it's right in my solar plexus. So just being really mindful of how your body feels in certain situations, or being mindful of your surroundings, mindful of the things you hear, mindful of the thoughts you're having towards other people, mindful of the thoughts you have towards yourself, mindful of your attitude. Like, what is my attitude like? Do I have a crappy attitude today? Or am I choosing joy in the midst of the circumstances I have? Am I choosing a positive outlook? Like, am I being grateful for what I have, or am I focused on what I don't have? Who am I listening to? Am I listening to negative voices, or am I listening to positive voices? Am I choosing to be other-centered right now and focus on serving others, or am I choosing to focus on myself and become depressed because I end up self-loathing or feeling like spiraling downward? So if I choose to be other-centered and I'm focused outward, choosing on serving others, then usually that heads me down a good self-perpetuating path of positivity and joy, and just I get to minister to other people. And then mindful of if I'm in a place where I'm being extremely prideful, like I'm acting like I got it all together, I don't need help from anybody, like I kind of isolating, or am I being mindful and trying to focus my energy and being come from a place of humility, like just being humble and like open to receiving support from my community members, open to giving support to my community members. Mindful of whether I'm showing up in a situation needing something, or if I want to add value, like really wanting to add value to this community, add value to other people, add value to the relationship I have with my husband, with my neighbors, with my friends I go to church with, my girlfriends, my ladies' Bible studies, the different members of our survivor community that happen to live here locally that, come by. Or I got to see a gal this morning that's just a wonderful friend. She's in some of our groups, and I just feel so inspired. So just mindful, I guess, of how we're showing up in the world, what we're listening to, how's our attitude? Are we focused in or are we focused out? Are we able to come from a place of humility? Are we able to really honor ourselves and establish some really healthy boundaries? And create some margin in our schedule so that we're not going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, like really managing blocks of time rather than tasks, because tasks can take an exorbitant amount of time. But if you manage blocks of time, you say, I give myself this much time to complete this task. And then if you don't, then you come back to it like at a future time that you designate for that task. But manage blocks of time rather than tasks. So creating boundaries, margin, really honoring ourselves in that, coming from a place of humility, adding value whenever we can. Yeah, I hope that helps. I kind of went off into my own little Athena world there, but I just wanted to give you a great answer that came from my heart, Stu. So hopefully that was helpful. I don't know what minute we're on in video, if Stu's still here. Gosh, that was probably a while ago. Maybe tell Stu that if we're on minute number like 1 hour 10, 1 hour 15, that he could get the answer to his question in case he's not here, because sometimes he's working at the gatehouse. So thank you, Stu. Thanks for tweeting out those memes, Nat. Hey, oh, so Jess's account on Twitter is identity diss, identity DISS. Just a wealth of knowledge and compassion there if y'all want to connect with Jess. Heroes Don't Wear Capes says, does anyone else choose to let themselves dissociate in stressful situations, or not choose as much as not attempt to stop it? Yes. I talked about this morning. I had a gal that's part of our survivor community that lives here locally, and she was coming by to, I'm selling a whole bunch of furniture, and I was selling a couple of yoga balls, and she happens to be a yoga instructor. So she came by to purchase a couple of the pieces of yoga equipment I had, and we talked specifically about choosing to dissociate during a stressful situation, or sort of feeling it, like we're really mindful of, like, I can feel myself going in that direction right now, and I'm gonna let myself not engage because I know where that road leads. So yes, heroes don't wear capes. And I want to say something really quick. Heroes don't wear capes. The questions you ask are very indicative of the place you are in your recovery journey. You are quite far along in your recovery journey. You have accomplished a lot in your recovery journey, if that makes any sense. I'm not saying that to be like weird and fawning. Like, I want to acknowledge and encourage you that the place that you're in and the self-awareness that you're experiencing, you're maturing in your recovery process of your journey, and you're kind of like a pretty far ways away. So if you're ever feeling discouraged or like you want to give up, please don't give up. Please don't give up. Even when you DM me on Twitter and I don't respond, because I'm horrible at responding because I have so much going on right now. So I hope that you are encouraged just in knowing that you're doing amazing work. Like, you're healing, you're really doing the hard work, you're really there, you're in it, and you're like pressing forward, you're thriving. That's what I'm trying to say. You're thriving, and I'm just like, wow, awesome. Yay, Stu heard me. Okay, so you guys, let me see if I can, I almost feel like I need to check and make sure everybody's okay, but I guess everybody's okay. Thanks to Heather and that. Y'all are just amazing. I'm so blessed. I'm going to do a screen share now. We're going to do a slide share in 9 minutes. How's that? So hopefully I answered all your all's questions, like, to the best of my ability, or at least I did. And I hope that's enough. If you have more questions, please leave comments below in the comment section. I know that it says comments are disabled, but they're not. Like, I don't know why it says that. Come back after the video pops up in like 30 minutes or so, and like, if you have questions, leave them below the video. And if this video is helpful for you, will you please give it a thumbs up? And if you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, Trauma Recovery University, yet, would you please subscribe? Because the more subscribers we have, the more that YouTube will put us up in their search algorithm, and that means more survivors will find the support that they need. And that's just amazing to me. So I hope that that makes sense. So I am going to do the screen share on the SlideShare presentation. So really quick, I want you to know that this SlideShare presentation, similar to last week, is not done by me. All of the accolades and all of the credit, including the copyright, go to, not Dennis Waitley. Hold on, wait for it, wait for it. Not Dennis Waitley, that's towards the end. Here, let me go back up to the beginning. Boom, there we go. Here, this gal here, Janelle Dutenhofer. So if you go into the description section of this video right now, you can find a link to this SlideShare presentation by Janelle Dutenhofer. She is a child and parent advocate, and I've given you access, a link to follow her and connect with her on LinkedIn. This is all copyrighted and protected by her. All the accolades, high fives, and confetti go in Janelle's direction. She gets all the confetti, all the high fives, all the credit. So here we go. Ready? The importance, oh, I want to say really quick as we move into this SlideShare presentation, I was particularly fond of this presentation because it is talking about self-advocacy skills in your child. Anybody on our YouTube channel right now in the chat box or over on the Twitter feed see the connection here? We do a lot of inner child work. We talk about inner child work here on this YouTube channel. You guys, the fact that this was written talking about a parent's role is the perfect opportunity for you, the adult version of you, watching this video, to pause and think about the parts of your life where you did not receive the parenting that you deserved, and for you to comfort and be there for the younger version of you as you sit and watch this SlideShare presentation. Because this is how we should have been parented. And we were not. Many of us were not. Maybe you were, but I was not. And many of my clients that I have the privilege of working with, many of my colleagues, many of you here that I know personally, did not receive the parenting you deserved. So this SlideShare presentation is brief, but it is powerful. And I would encourage you to really comfort and be kind to the younger version of you that never received the love and the comfort and the care that you so deserved. Because this can be very powerfully healing for you just by going through this SlideShare with me. And this is very validating. This was very validating for me, and I have a feeling it will be very validating for you. And you will walk away with tools to advocate for yourself in new ways. Okay? So here we go. We're going to go very, very, very fast. We're going to do this in 5 minutes. Stay with me. 5 minutes. The importance of encouraging self-advocacy skills in your child, or as I'm presenting this to you, the importance of encouraging self-advocacy skills in yourself. You. Why? Because you're worth it. Next slide. What is self-advocacy? Self-advocacy is speaking up for myself, advocating for my wants, needs, and desires, having my voice heard. Who needs and benefits from self-advocacy? Everyone, especially our children, or for you and I here on this presentation, especially our inner child or the younger version of us that never received it. Next slide. Why is self-advocacy important? It gives a voice to inner thoughts and desires. Self-advocacy encourages self-reliance and self-determination. Self-advocacy encourages ownership of one's actions. Self-advocacy helps to increase maturity. What I was talking to Heroes Don't Wear Capes, how I was saying that they're maturing in their healing, in the healing process, in their recovery journey. Self-advocacy actually fans the flame of maturity and really helps us to become resilient and mature in our recovery process. Self-advocacy reduces frustration, fear, and anger. How many of you watching right now get frustrated, fearful, and angry? I'm raising my hand right now. Hello. I do. Self-advocacy reduces the sense of helplessness and hopelessness. I don't know about you, but I struggle with helplessness and hopelessness sometimes, less now than before, but I still struggle. Next slide. What role does self-advocacy play in my child or teenager's life? Or for those of us here on this video, what role does self-advocacy play in my life? Self-advocacy plays a very important role. When the parent isn't there, for example, at school, or the child or teenager can speak for himself or herself, during the school years, the child or teenager can share with teachers, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that word. I had it earlier. Speech and language therapists, aides, and anyone in the school setting, what works and does not work in the classroom. Self-advocacy and self-determination are interdependent. And what interdependent means is that they work together. They're not mutually exclusive of one another. So if you are self-determined and you are also focusing on self-advocacy, they work together in tandem with one another. There's a synergy there. They're synergistic. Definitely, they go together. What are the key elements of self-advocacy? There are 3 of them. One is communication. Another is self-awareness. There that is again. And the knowledge of laws and rights and education. So we're going to go from the top. Under communication, the ability to articulate a clear message. And in this case, you guys, ability to articulate a clear message to advocate for ourselves. Respectful interactions. That means being respectful with not only people in authority, but respectful towards our friends, loved ones, spouses, children, bosses, co-workers, ourselves. Yes, being respectful of yourself. Self-respect is very underrated and isn't talked about enough. Void of emotion. Being void of emotion is one of the key elements of self-advocacy. What does that even mean? This is what it means, you guys. The reason it's under communication is there are going to be times when you, as a survivor, need to advocate for yourself and communicate very clearly a message to someone and be very respectful towards them, and you need to be void of emotion. Wait until you are not emotionally charged when you make that phone call to the doctor's office, or when you go pick up that prescription, or when you have that difficult conversation with someone. Wait until you're not emotionally charged. You really need to wait, because if you're all emotional, it is very difficult for people to take you seriously and respect you. So just wait. And the last one under communication is good listening skills. I cannot say this enough or with as much emphasis. I cannot overemphasize this point, and that is that we need to be excellent listeners. And many of us are, to the point of hypervigilance, but having good listening skills and being hypervigilant are not synonymous. They're not mutually exclusive, but they're not synonymous. So I can be hypervigilant and hyper aware of situations without being a good listener. So being a good listener means that you are listening to the message that the other person is saying to you. If you're picking up a prescription, if you're talking to a doctor, you're having a difficult conversation with someone, it means that you're listening to the words that they're saying and you're recognizing the intent of their message. What are they intending to communicate to you? Next bullet point, self-awareness. This is huge. Knowing and recognizing one's strengths as well as areas of challenge. You guys, when we know what our strengths are and when we know what our challenges are, that's half the battle, because then we can navigate the terrain, right? But if you are like me and you struggle knowing what your strengths are, get plugged into Safe Community
and somehow, like, go over to our About section on our YouTube channel, or if you're watching this on Roku, on our Roku TV channel, go to our YouTube channel, go to our About section, and follow a little 4-step process there. Get plugged into one of our free, private, safe communities, and ask someone, a safe person, what they think your strengths are. Just simple question. It doesn't need to be a 30, 40-minute messaging, private message volley back and forth. It can say, whenever you get the time, would you mind pointing out some things that you see in me that you consider to be strengths? And then have someone tell you honestly. They're going to be honest with you. They want to encourage you. And if there are some areas that you struggle with or particular challenges for you, or maybe you're blind to them, if you trust somebody and you feel open to it, ask them what they think that some areas of some opportunities for growth might be for you. If you have something that you struggle with, if you are able to frame it in a way that you look at it as though it is an opportunity for growth, then you will thrive in your recovery journey. Don't "I can't" yourself all over the place. Don't say you can't. I forget who said the quote, but there's a meme out there that says, whether you say you can't or you can, you're right. So let's not can't ourselves all over the place, you guys, because I know you can do this. Next bullet point. Awareness of how the deafness or hearing loss specifically impacts a child, teenager, socially, emotionally, and academically. Now, you guys, this particular bullet point here, I'm assuming this bullet point has to do with a child who has a hearing disability and is trying to advocate for themselves in a school situation or a social situation. So please disregard this unless, of course, you have a hearing disability. Okay? I didn't want to delete this person's bullet point because this is an excellent presentation, but I did want to point that out of what that might mean. And then the last bullet point says, one of the key elements of self-advocacy is knowledge of laws and rights and knowledge of the education systems, accommodations, and specifically designed instruction. And what this means is, remember I told you guys I got to go to that seminar, that presentation over on the other side of the island on self-advocacy. It was a 2-day workshop. They talked about knowing your rights and knowing what the laws are in the county you live in and the state that you live in with regards to whatever it is you're struggling with, whether you're living with PTSD, anxiety, agoraphobia, generalized anxiety disorder, if you're living with an eating disorder, if you're living with an autoimmune disease, whatever it is, if there's a mental illness or a physical illness that you are dealing with, know the laws and know the rights that you have as a consumer, as a mental health consumer, okay? Next slide. Self-advocacy. How can I, as a parent, encourage self-advocacy? Or for those of us watching here on this YouTube channel, how can I, as an adult, encourage self-advocacy in myself since I did not learn it as a child? Bullet point number 1, listen to what your child or teenager is sharing. Listen to their desires, frustrations, funny things, activities that she or he enjoys, subjects in school that he or she likes, and how he or she learns most easily. Now, what this would translate for you guys is really listen to yourself, listen to your body. And if you can differentiate between when you are sort of in child mode or when you're in an emotional flashback or when you are in one of those moments where you're dealing with an inner child situation, you're ministering to your inner child, then if you are able to create a safe space and just listen to what that younger version of you might need or what they're frustrated about, or just be in tune with yourself is what I would recommend. I'm working with one of my clients right now who is not living with DID or dissociative identity disorder, but he is actually very keenly aware of a younger version of himself that is age 7, I believe, at the time. That's one of the ages. And then there are 2 older versions of himself that are 2 sides of the same coin. They act out. They're very rebellious. And then there is a 4th younger version of him that is not affected by the other 2, like a wise mind, like a manager. right? If you guys are familiar with Bessel van der Kolk, and there's also a modality out there called IFS, or internal family systems. It's very, 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 very fascinating. And if there is a wise version of you, like a wise mind, or someone that's a manager of all of your different parts of things that you've been through, this is really, really, really key. That's going to be the version of you that will feel most comfortable advocating for yourself. So perhaps I can do another video if you guys want me to on inner child stuff, but I only want to do the videos that you guys want me to do. So leave it in the comments below, like in a half an hour or an hour, or whenever the comment section is open, if you're not tuning in live, or if you are tuning in live. Next bullet point. To encourage self-advocacy, look for opportunities to encourage independence, not depending on other people to get your needs met. Finding a way to be independent. It really is so, so, so key. Provide support or advice on how to approach a situation. So that's like positive self-talk, or even reaching out to someone and finding advice on how to approach a situation. If you're not 100% sure how to self-advocate for yourself and you're still sort of learning the ropes here, just look and see what the wisest version of yourself, how they would approach the situation. Sometimes this can get really difficult, you guys. We didn't learn the things that we needed to learn when we were children, and so here we are trying to struggle through them. Third to last bullet point, give your child or teenager the opportunity to solve a challenge without your direct intervention, but with your guidance. Now, for us watching this video, this would be solve challenges in a way that you feel is right. You know what I mean? Like in a way that you think a healthy parent would parent their children. That's the advice I would give myself. The way this would look for me is I would give myself an opportunity to handle a situation that might be difficult, where a parent would normally intervene and help me, but I would handle it to the best of my ability. And I would just test the waters. As scary as it might be, I would do it anyway. Second to last bullet point, respect your teenager's choices. Now, I would do, for those of us watching this particular video, I would say respect your choices. Make a choice on how to handle something and respect your choice. What's best for you. No one else is going to be able to tell you how to heal from childhood trauma. No one. Every recovery is different. Everyone deserves to heal. And your healing path is your healing path. And I respect that, and I'm hoping that you respect that. And I need you to surround yourself with people that respect that respect your choices. And the last bullet point, which might be the most important one on this page of all, and that is every try is a success. This healing from childhood trauma is such a long journey. It's not a one and done. It's a lifelong process. And if we can get to a point where we are celebrating the small wins, then that is a sign of maturity, and we're going to burn out less frequently. Next slide. Self-advocacy as a parent, where do I begin? Or for those of us watching this video, where do I begin with self-advocacy? Where do I begin, or how do I continue to support my child's self-advocacy skills? For us, where do I begin? How do I learn self-advocacy skills? Well, here we go. Ask yourself, am I ready? Am I ready to advocate for myself? Am I ready to learn? Second bullet point, allow your child to make choices in situations where you normally are the decision maker. And what this would translate to for those of us watching this video is those decisions that our parents should have made for us, that they would have known better if we had healthy parents. And we would have had guidance. We would have had a healthy role model. Find a situation like that where you wish you would have had the guidance from a healthy role model, and step out in faith and try to make a healthy decision for yourself. Because I'm telling you, you are much more wise than you think you are, and I believe in you. Next bullet point. Expect the newfound self-advocacy skills to be used in communicating with you. Meaning if you're in like a relationship with a partner or a spouse and you both are practicing your self-advocacy, it means that we're going to be establishing some healthy boundaries, right? And sometimes when we establish healthy boundaries, the people that we are closest to might not like it at first. And self-advocacy and healthy boundaries go hand in hand. So it's very, very similar. Second to last bullet point, take advantage of every opportunity you have to listen first and share second. Last bullet point, lastly, breathe and enjoy the ride. And I would encourage you guys to just breathe, look for opportunities to stand up for yourself and to use your voice in a healthy way. And let me know your progress. Leave messages below this video. I want to hear your progress. I get emails from you guys that blow me away. I get SpeakPipe messages. I get DMs on Twitter. I get people posting in our private groups. I mean, it's unbelievable. So here we are. We're towards the end of our slideshow presentation. Self-advocacy fosters self-confidence. This is one of my favorite memes. I loved that Janelle used this in her presentation. Isn't that awesome? Where the little cat is looking in the mirror and sees himself as a lion. How amazing is that? Next slide. Self-advocacy is a lifelong activity taken in incremental steps. It's never a one and done. And second to last slide, the greatest gifts you can give your children are the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. And the person who said that quote is Dennis Waitley. But for those of us watching this video, I want to say to you, one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself are the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. Because I believe in you, and I know you guys can advocate for yourselves. I know you're going to find your voice, and I know you are going to thrive in your recovery journey. Many thanks. Last slide. Yay! And the crowd goes wild. Confetti. So I hope you guys enjoyed that slideshow presentation by Janelle. Let me make sure that I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. Janelle Dutenhofer. Again, if you go to the description section in this video, you have a link to her slideshow presentation and a link to her LinkedIn if you want to connect with her on LinkedIn. I didn't get any of her other social profile information. It was just the one that was on there. So it has been my pleasure to, I lost a lot of you. Sometimes I lose a lot of you when I do screen shares, and that's okay. I totally understand. But hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Oh yeah, Henry Ford. Thanks, Matt. Henry Ford is the one who said that quote earlier, you guys. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford. So let's not can't ourselves all over the place, and let's not should ourselves all over the place, okay? So I really loved being here with you guys tonight. I loved answering your questions. And sometimes I get an opportunity to hop over and see if there's anything over in the YouTube chat box, but I only usually can see the last 5 messages. And I didn't get a chance to type to you guys today, so forgive me, but I am grateful that you all are there on YouTube. And I'm grateful that you guys are all over there on Twitter also. So next week, I'm going to answer more questions that you guys are sending me. And I'm not sure how to frame them yet. I have quite a few questions. I'm trying to see which ones go together. And but I'll hopefully see you guys back here next Monday, the 20th of March, 2017. And it has been my pleasure to be here with you guys, supporting you and answering your questions. I'm Athena Moberg, and I love helping you break the cycle of dysfunction and break the cycle of toxicity in your life. So I just wish we could all just have coffee, just sit and hang out together. I think that would be amazing. So I hope to see you guys here next week. It's been a pleasure. Many thanks to all the volunteers that are making this possible. Kalisha and Maggie and Jody and Heather and Matt and Poppy. Hey, you guys, shout out to Poppy's Mission. If you want to go follow them on Twitter, Poppy's Mission, at Poppy's Mission, Poppys Mission. She made us a ton of gifts that have all of our information on them for RAINN.org, for the Samaritans, for all the text lines, the text support lines for intervention, for if you're in crisis, the crisis hotline numbers, how to text, like what numbers to text. So just shout out to Poppy and just to all of you guys, all of the volunteers. I'm just so blessed and so grateful. So thanks so much, and I'll see you here next week, Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And thanks again. Bye, everybody.